You're given two arms for a reason. One to pull yourself up, but one to pull other people along with you. And one of the most annoying things about the human psyche is that sometimes you don't believe that you can do something until you see it done. It's like the Roger Bannister 4-minute mile. And especially to women, I think to add on to that, you don't believe something is possible for you until you see someone who looks like you doing. And that's what we have. We have women who have net worths in the hundreds of millions of dollars. I have a friend, Christina, who owns a stinking island. So now that feels possible to me because I know an actual human who owns one. So that is what we look to provide.
They're the role models of where you want to go and you can see it. But you're also in a community that wants that success for you. They want to integrate with you and you want to integrate with them because that's how women succeed. I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter. All right, we're here. Mandy and I have been working this out. We're super excited to have you guys today with the show with us. This is Mandy McAllister with GoBundance Women. Woohoo, woohoo. And I'm excited. She is also a professional in multifamily. And so she's going to touch on that. But I love that today we're going to be able to really dig into the concept of, and this is for you women specifically. Men, if you want to keep listening, you can. But really the content today is for women, by women. How does this work? The community and having the strength and the inner fortitude and the community around you to make you successful in real estate and to help you when you're not successful in real estate, because real estate is not always successful. And we need to live with that as women our way. And Mandy and I are going to be able to dig into that, and I am excited about that. So Mandy, welcome to the show.
Oh,
good to
hi.
have you here.
So excited. Thank you so much for having me.
Why don't you bottom line your history real quick? How'd you get from being 2 years old to today?
I love it. I grew up on a farm. So my parents were entrepreneurs, so that's always been in my bones. Learned of the idea of real estate investing in college because a friend explained her dad bought the house and rented out the rooms. And I thought, and you get to keep that money? That's the best idea I've ever heard in my life, right? And then ended up doing all the things you're supposed to do in the right way, got the right degrees and was the athlete and did all of the things. And then ended up finally, realizing we get one shot at this big life when I had my kiddo. And that's when it hit the fan. I decided to take some risks. So
good for you. Good for you. So therefore, tell me about the transition, the moment when you chose to use real estate to break through to your financial freedom. You had a perfectly good W-2.
Right.
But here you are.
Well, I was in medical device sales. That's a job that some people want, that has a lot of panache to it. So I had this whole identity that I was needing to uncurl, right? So I ended up I wasn't hitting a number after I was number 5 out of 500. And my boss told me, well, you've got to just go find patients. Well, you can't just go digging through medical records like he was suggesting. I knew I couldn't do that, right? I was a brand new single mom and I probably had a diagnosable panic attack in the parking deck of that hospital, right? But then I realized, oh wait, I've got a little bit of, a couple $1,000s worth of cash flow coming in from my real estate investments at that point. I could really double down on that and then live the life that is within my moral compass, live the life that really sets me up to do the things that I want. And that was really kind of a breakthrough moment for me.
When you say live the life inside your moral compass, you are not the first one to have that conversation with me. The first time I heard that, though, I was surprised because I went, I care about financial freedom having to do with time and the clarity of this brain, right? I get up in the morning, when I worked, which I did for several years, receptionist, teacher, receptionist in childcare. When I worked, it was like a grind. It was like this constant mill. Constantly, I'd get up and I'd go, oh man, can I just get off the treadmill? It was better when I was a teacher because at least I ended my day at 3 and then I could go dancing at night. And that, it was when I had that true 9-to-5 job that I was like, I really don't like this. I don't relate to this. I don't want to do this. And I started resenting my day every morning. right? And that was what was my driver for, I just need an entrepreneur, however entrepreneur shows up. I need to not be a W-2, right? But when you say integrity, I remember, like I said, I heard a woman say it to me the first time and I just went, yeah, I guess that's really true. It really isn't so much about the grind and leaving the grind, which so many of us, I think, focus on. It's having the power of living your values and your purpose and not having somebody else say, no, you should live outside your values.
Oh, absolutely. That was one example of how I didn't want to live my life. Another piece of my values, if I say I prize my family, I prize being a mother, if I really dialed back and look at how I was using my time, I was working 14-hour days and never seeing my baby, right? Like that is not really living in your values if you are not putting your time and your money where you say your values are, right? So I ended up having the opportunity to get to be the mom who got to go on field trips because I leaned into real estate, which was really a big piece of my why.
I can only I can only say amen to that. Like literally just so glad that I was that mom too. The purpose of my real estate was so I could pick up my kid on time. Weird purpose, but I grew up with a single mom raising 3 kids. She worked as an entrepreneur from home. Good example that she worked as an entrepreneur. Bad because she worked 14, 18-hour days. And so literally I literally was at preschool and I remember my preschool teacher kind of walking around the room going, well, I hope your mom gets here soon because I gotta go home. And I'm like 4 and I'm going, well, I can't, and really just feeling like somewhere between stuck and overwhelmed and afraid. Because I literally was the one grown-up who was in the room with me was now telling me she wanted to go home. And the one grown-up that was supposed to get me, which was my mom, was nowhere to be found. And I don't know how I'm going to fix that at 4, right? So it was ingrained in me. And there's several stories kind of like this, but that was probably the very first moment where I really kind of went, along with some other things, am I really safe? And that was something I didn't want my daughter to grow up with, was the concept of safe. Was my mom doing what was right? Yes, she was. My mom was a single mom who was trying to earn money to make sure we had a place to live and food on the table. Was my mom doing what was important and true and right? Yes, she was. So I just took the scenario and reversed it. I earned my money first. I developed my real estate portfolio first so that I could choose to be a mom and be there to pick up my kid on time. And even it's so funny to my kid be like, you're 10 minutes late, Mom. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I was 10 minutes late. I'm so happy I'm only 10 minutes late, but at the same time, for her and her world, 10 minutes was meaningful. So to me, the power of real estate was being able to only be 10 minutes late, being able to be there on time. That hour or 2 hours was the power of my real estate. My daughter's clarity, my daughter's self-confidence was the power of my real estate. That was the purpose almost solely.
Beautiful.
Thank you. I wasn't meant to be too much about me. I apologize. We're here. We're in the field of women and what's important and values and purpose, and we're in the field of that. And so you were missing your little one, 14 hours. You didn't get to be with your little one.
Mm-hmm. Actually, a funny punchline to my life is that I started undergrad in chemistry, planning to go to medical school, and then ended up talking with a cardiologist who said, you better love medicine because you're going to be a slave to this pager. You're going to be on call. You're going to be a slave. You better love it. So then literally middle of my junior year of undergrad, I switched to the business school and away from medicine. And then I ended up ascending the ladder of medical device sales such that I was on call. The thing that I was trying to avoid, the universe brought right back to me, right? So that's big decisions got to get made if you continue to get pulled back to where you don't want to be.
Okay, when you're talking about the universe and self-fulfilling prophecies, that's an incredibly powerful subject. You opened it. I didn't open that up. You opened that up. I'm just saying. Because it is something that I think intuition, women are more connected to intuition. We're more connected to that concept of, gee, wow, I've noticed that I'm right where I didn't want to be. What did I do? How did I set myself up? Or, okay, take it.
You're gonna continue to get a lesson until you learn that lesson. And sometimes it's, Oprah talks about it, it's a whisper, and then it's like a loud shout, and then it's a brick to the head. If you don't learn the lesson that you need to learn, you're going to continue to get delivered opportunities to learn it until you do. And I guess I'm lucky that I learned it when I did.
You are lucky that you learned it when you did, but you were also lucky because you were listening.
That's so much of it. I think we become, so involved in the doing of things. And especially, we can talk about women and multitasking and needing to be the ones in charge of their households on a disproportionate amount. But, end of the day, if you get so caught up in the cycle of just doing, then you never have an opportunity to relax and listen to that intuition, to listen to what the world is telling you so that you can really do things that are true to yourself. I think that was another really big lesson that I learned over the course of the last few years.
Yeah, and it is the being able to lift out of the doing. I mean, you're sometimes I think you and I are clones. I'm just saying. When I first sat with you on the sofa and you were like, oh yeah, and I've got, I studied economics. And I'm like, oh my God, and then, yeah, you're passionate about women and passionate about, and in ways one would say psychology, but quality of life.
Life by design. Yep. Life by design.
Life by design, right? Life by design. And I honestly think that life by design is ultimately the freedom we're actually looking for.
Exactly. Yeah. I actually had the opportunity. So I am a multifamily investor. I bought my way out of my W-2 by buying small multis up to about 50 unit apartment buildings. There's something really beautiful about the 30 to 50 space. And I actually, for GoBundance, the tribe of millionaires, I was giving a talk at an event that we had recently. And there's, deal sponsors in the room that have tens of thousands of units, assets under management. And then there's little Mandy on the stage with her 370 units talking about that, I've done like 8 transactions. I've got this portfolio that basically provides a floor of income so that I get to live a life that I want. I'm not about to poo-poo your $1 billion assets under management. However, are you living a life that really is commensurate with what you want? Are you getting the adventures you want? Are you schlepping it? Did you trade one job for another? Is that a thing that you're doing rather than relaxing into the life that you want and letting your assets provide for you? Like, that is my goal.
And it's we're so off on the women thing, which is beautiful and is so. It's like, I want to talk about in your history what prepared you for being successful, both as GoBundance Women, but also inside of your multifamily investing. But maybe let's add on to that, like, what is it about being a woman that helps you be more successful? Because that's a really big question. So let's do you, and then let's do women.
So I think, it didn't hurt at all to have 2 parents that were entrepreneurs growing up. The idea of, they wanted safety for me, what they didn't have, but I had this opportunity to see that life could be awesome and safe without the security of a W-2, right? And then I do feel like I've played mostly in male-dominated sandboxes for the bulk of my career. Masters in economics, Chicago Board of Trade floor, Division I athlete, like all of these things that I did, like, were tremendously, masculine energy dominated. And one thing that I learned is, especially in this multifamily stuff, I get an opportunity to go talk at these big events way more than dudes who are equally as smart, if not smarter than me, because I look different. I could either look at my looking different than everybody else in the room as oh no, I'm not going to be able to do this because I'm different. Or I can be like, no, I'm going to get noticed and get my voice out there more because I look different, and use it as a competitive advantage. So I think, one kind of mindset hack that I've had is repositioning the way that looks so that it is an advantage and not something that holds me back.
I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't agree more. The fact that it is, oh my God, I couldn't agree more. So the fact that because I dress specifically, right? We all know that Christina wears white, and I dress specifically with that sort of white persona, and it's a part of my brand. And there's a spiritual reason for that, not just a brand reason for that, right? It's me being on purpose spiritually, of fulfilling what I feel like my purpose, my job is on the planet. And white embodies that message for me as a reminder for myself and as an expression towards the world. So that's why white, right? That's one of the reasons. But the other thing that I've learned is that my presence, the fact that I stand out, works for me, not against me. The fact that I can walk up to any group of men who are talking and they will make space for me. It's just real simple. People don't know me. They have no idea who's Christina. And this chick walks up who is dressed relatively well, relatively elegantly. White is an unusual color. And I'm like, hi, can I join? And they're like, sure, come on in, lady. The fact that there's an automatic inclusion, not exclusion, inclusion in the fact that I'm female and I can walk into almost any conversation is great. Now, do they sometimes treat me a little differently when the woman first shows up? Are they shifting? Yeah, they shift. They shift energetically. They shift in their thinking. They shift in the conversation. What I feel like my job is in that moment is to say, I'm a team member. And the way I do that is I talk in a way that isn't, how do I put it, that is a fundamental, that is functional, that is focused on values, it's focused on economics, focused on numbers, focused on that type of being a team member. You can count on me to know my business, right? Not with the purpose of intimidating, but the purpose of joining. Oh, I know this? No, I don't know this, right? And being able to anchor in that energetic stance and in that focus, I think allows men to go, oh, I see you. I see you as a team member. I see you as a participant, right? Like when you're playing soccer, or I don't know what you played, there's probably the same lesson for you.
I think the universe gives you exactly what you expect from it, right? If you walk into a circle of people and anticipate that you will be able to add value and learn something, then that's what's going to happen. If you walk into a circle intimidated, like you're going to be shunned, that's more likely to happen. It's your expectation, generally speaking, leads to what you get out of stuff.
Couldn't have been said more truthfully. I do think there is something in women where they can embrace that, right?
Have you read the book of or seen the TED Talk by Reshma? I cannot remember her last name, but she did Girls Who Code. The book and the talk were called Girls Are Taught to Be Perfect, Boys Are Taught to Be Brave. I think that very much embodies something that I'm working to in the 14-year-old girls volleyball that I coach, in the family that I'm raising. I'm really very much positioning the girls to be willing to take chances in a way that is not kind of inherent in our culture. So I think that that's a next right step for where we're going.
I think it is. And I think if I can, since you know so much about this, I don't think we're going to get to any of our questions. Just letting you know, I don't think we're going to get to any of my questions, which I don't care about. I think that it's important for us to recognize that women and men embrace or step up to risk in a slightly different fashion, but they both step up to risk. And that is, I think, something that is fundamental in our success of being willing to understand we step up to risk, we assess risk, we assess it our way, and it might be different than the way a man might assess it, but it's just as powerful, just as implementable, just as useful. And in a way, because it's different, it brings its own point of view and therefore its own level of success.
I think that you're hitting on something, that there are two books in particular that really helped inform my own thoughts around this. One is Think and Grow Rich for Women. You probably heard of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill back in the day. Think and Grow Rich for Women was an updated version by Sharon Lechter, who is my spirit animal. What an incredible woman she is. It basically, not only does it update the examples that Think and Grow Rich has, because it was written in the 20s, but it's also with the more, feminine eye to things. Men really crave power in many cases. Women crave impact. So the differences of a man to a woman brain, this really highlights and really helped me, because the idea of Think and Grow Rich and the power, I don't care about power, right? Things that feel greedy, turn me off. this really helped me understand my own drives for, to be rich, so that was really helpful. Another one that I found super helpful that is kind of all the rage in GoBundance, all the rage in GoBundance Women. It's called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. This one we put in actually both of these books we put in our new member packs. And the thing that I took away from The Psychology of Money that I think is uniquely, female helping is, because we were taught to be perfect, because if you're a high achieving woman, you were probably a high achieving girl, right? And if you were a high achieving girl, you waited your turn and you raised your hand and you had all the answers and you got straight A's and you listened and you were a good little girl. But in the world of entrepreneurship, in order to be successful, you have to take a risk. And that not being perfect thing that you just learned and got a pat on the head as a kid for, you don't get to do that and also fail forward. Those two things are in direct opposition. So the idea that I took away from this was that I need to be reasonable enough. That being perfect is something that will hold me back. Waiting to be perfect will absolutely hold me back. But if I am reasonable enough in the data that I've collected and the choices that I'm making, that is how I'm going to go find success.
I so appreciate that. My daughter, who's 14, right? So she's smart, she's athletic. I feel like I've told her that the value of living is that you make a mistake, and then if you make a mistake, you just own it and you try to fix it if you can, right? Like, mistakes are not a big deal. And yet she's still a perfectionist. I think it's the only child problem, maybe. And she's used to being the teacher's pet. She, of course, is now at 14. I love it because she's goth. She's now very goth in her dress, which I actually appreciate.
Opposite of white. I wonder if there's a reason there.
Maybe, just maybe she's trying to find her own identity separate from mama, which I love, right? I mean, that's her job. Her job for the next 4+ years is to decide the identity she's going to start taking on in her 20s and who she wants to start participating with in this world in her way. So I love that she's pushing away to find her own identity. There's a whole conversation she and I had, a version of that. But the point is that I look at her and I go, oh, you're a rule follower. I kind of don't want you to be too much of a rule follower. Is that a bad thing to say as a parent? Like, I don't. I want her to be able to go, no, I'm actually going to build my own path.
So I have a 14-year-old bonus daughter in my house. And, we had some rule breaks recently. And we ended up with some really incredible conversations around okay, I don't think it makes sense to every moment of your life follow every rule that's before you. However, let's have a decision-making process there. What is your decision-making process? When you broke that rule, what were you thinking through, right? And if the answer is I wasn't thinking, then that's an appropriate answer. And then let's put into place a decision-making process that's going to serve you. Because my decision-making process, if a rule is in front of me that I want to break, is I first run it through the values that I've decided that I want to have for my life, that are going to define the person that I'm growing into. And let's sit down as a family and come up with our family values so that we have that filter to run things through. Because sometimes rules are made to be broken, but sometimes rules are there for a friggin' reason to keep you safe and moving in the right direction. So understand what's in front of you.
And I think it's perfect. And understanding rules based against value. It's not Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but it is. I mean, it is, but it isn't. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is that the last is realization. The last is self-awareness. Thank you. Self-actualization. You sure you didn't get a degree in psychology? You think economics, but yeah, the highest is self-actualization. And even if the self-actualization, in the process of them actually administering it, some of the choices that people made were counter to one what might think of as kind. But when they interviewed the person who made that choice, they said, but it's based upon my values. And it's it's based upon their self-actualization, the things that they have come to in their awareness of themselves. And I think that that's important to understand, especially as parents and with our children. What are their values and what are they choosing to step into based upon that they have chosen their values? And I think this time period is about them being able to reflect on, well, this is my value, and therefore I am choosing this. And as a parent, can you hear that, even if it's in contradiction to your own? Now, there's certain boundaries that I'm like, no, I'm not going to go beyond that because my value is too deep on that. But there's a lot, I think, in there of like, does she have to get along with every girl in class? No, she really doesn't. And that's not her value. Her value is to be a student. So she may or may not get along with the other girls in class. Okay, that's my value. That's not hers.
We have some active ongoing conversations within GoBundance Women. So we get together and we talk about problems like these. So if you've got littles, it comes with a different set of problems. The idea or the fear that you're going to fail your kid because you are showing up as an entrepreneur traveling some, right? No, I reframe that in my own brain, that I am showing my kids to go chase their dreams, that it's okay to go chase your dreams. Also, when you get into the older kids, the other active conversation that we've got are, let's actually define those values so that the kids are thinking about them. Because if a kid isn't actively setting goals or thinking through who they want to be, then things are kind of all left up to chance, and you don't want that.
Let's talk even more about how GoBundance is specifically set up GoBundance Women is specifically set up to support women. Like the format of itself, the actual format of the program is set up so that women can be supported. So let's hear about that.
Well, generally speaking, GoBundance Women is the tribe of healthy, wealthy, generous women who choose to lead epic lives. We are largely female entrepreneurs and C-suite executives with a very heavy lean into real estate investing because, we are the tribe of millionaires. So if you believe that 90% of all millionaires are made so because of real estate, you anticipate a very heavy concentration in real estate. One of the big things we do is we divide out into what we call micro groups. So people who want to talk about running triathlons, they get together and they talk about it. If you have little kids or teenage kids with stuff you need to talk through with other female entrepreneurs, that we provide space for that. I invest in apartment buildings, so we have a place that if you want to talk about investing in apartments, a place for that discussion as well. So very much the idea that drives me, that made me a member first, that now drives me to want to lead this into the best possible organization possible, is because you're given two arms for a reason. One, to pull yourself up, but one, to pull other people along with you. And one of the most annoying things about the human psyche is that sometimes you don't believe that you can do something until you see it done. It's like the Roger Bannister 4-minute mile, right? And especially to women, I think, to add on to that, you don't believe something is possible for you until you see someone who looks like you doing it. And that's what we have. We have women who have net worths in the hundreds of millions of dollars. We have a woman, like I have a friend, Christina, who owns a stinking island, right? So now that feels possible to me because I know an actual human who owns one. So that is what we look to provide.
And the community is built in because then there's a constant conversation. So you're talking about the depth of the role modeling and that you're exposed to and around other women who are moving forward. They're the role models of where you want to go, and you can see it. But you're also in a community that wants that success for you. They want to integrate. They want to integrate with you, and you want to integrate with them because that's how women succeed.
Absolutely. I realized that when I first bought a 53-unit apartment building, that next day I went to a little barbecue in the neighborhood and I was so excited about it. I wanted to celebrate it, right? And I was at this kind of celebration place. So I told a neighbor friend, and you know what she said? She goes, "Oh, it must be nice." And I'm like, "Oh no, I worked really hard for this. I wanted a high five, and what I got was a feeling of guilt because I found a layer of success." Well, one thing that is a safe place in this GoBundance world is there's always someone ready to give me a high five for, closing a big deal or, a hard parenting conversation or whatever thing's going on. It's, we very much show up for each other and are there for that high five when we need it.
Yeah, and it is something that women do excel in that environment. We do, in my experience as a female, I do not excel in an environment where I feel like somebody's yelling at me or I'm in competition with somebody. I excel in an environment where I feel like we're all moving forward, and there's nothing I have to hide, and there's nothing I have to pretend. Like, I'm doing this and that's what it is, and you're doing that and that's what it is, and I don't need to be upset about you doing that, and you don't have to be upset about me doing this, and we can all be moms. It doesn't mean that it doesn't happen, that we don't have that inner jealousy and angst, as a human being. I think we all have that. But to be in an environment inherently where I'm not gonna, like, somebody doesn't want to talk to me because I don't own enough doors. Like, I think that's different, I think, in a feminine environment.
So I think very much that we remind ourselves that comparison is the thief of joy. While my 373 little doors might look really little next to the guy with 10,000, like, we have different goals. I am running my race and I am winning my race and I am getting better at my race every single day. What I need from my people around me is accountability of that the words I say that are important to me and my actions that put me in that direction are in alignment. And that's what I get.
So tell me, just real quick on the functional level. GoBundance is an annual, GoBundance Women is an annual group. Has retreats every year.
Yep. So
give me a quick rundown on that.
So the big pieces of things that we do is every member ends up in a pod, which is a kind of, I look at them like the board of directors for my life. That's usually 5 to 7 women who meet either weekly or bi-weekly. Then we have those micro groups that I talked about that are kind of special purpose conversations. Those happen either once a month or twice a month. We have like 19 or 20 of them. Then we do retreats, which are really big events that we put on. We do one in the spring, one in the fall. We're actually in about a month going to be in Austin, Texas. Cody Sanchez, if you've heard that name, she'll be with us. A woman, Dr. Betty Murray, who is a specialist in menopause, is going to be talking to us about what's going to be happening in our bodies. We've had Lisa Song Sutton. We've had Lisa Bilyeu. We've had lots of really, Dr. Shafali, a parenting expert who's been on Oprah Super Soul Sunday. Like, they're very good friends of GoBundance Women. We get really high level speakers in to kind of smaller, more intimate groups, like roughly about 80 people attend these twice per year. Then we do what we call summits. The summits are shorter ones. They're one day, just meant for connection and like kind of business planning and life planning. But the real juice of the organization is, one, women who are all in on their pods that are meeting with that board of directors on a regular basis. And then 2, meeting in person, because that's really where connection comes alive. All of the stuff in between kind of just continues that conversation.
It's just so, it's beautifully set up, because it's when you're in a pod of women or you're in a group of women that are all looking to be entrepreneurs, we've all chosen that. Clearly, if you're going to own real estate, you've chosen to have an entrepreneurial aspect to your life, period. And you're less likely to run into that barbecue situation, because the women have already self-selected in that they're looking to be dedicated to creating financial freedom or a life of purpose or a life of impact. And many of them are probably going to be moms. Not all of them are going to be moms, but that community goal is consistent between the women. It just gives permission. And I find that true of men as well, right? Men have the same, where they do seek permission. They do seek being able to be around a group of sports guys or a group of entrepreneurs or a group of, mechanics or people that are like them in their thinking and are seeking the same expertise that they're seeking. So I think that's maybe not just a woman's trait, maybe that's just a human trait of wanting to be around people who are seeking what you're seeking and feeling supported by that.
It's the idea of you become the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time around, right? And the way I couch this to the 14-year-old in my house is whoever you hang out with is what normal starts to look like. Right? If we are hanging around people who binge watch Netflix 24/7, we're probably going to end up binge watching Netflix, right? And to the 14-year-old, if you're hanging around kids that are vaping, that will look normal and you'll probably want to do it. So choose your friend group appropriately.
Beautifully said. All right, so tell me about a deal that went wrong, and let's double back to how women manage risk or how women manage that vulnerability, because inherently in real estate, deals go wrong. You can use a sports analogy, but I think that the difficulty of the sports analogy is this, oh yeah, that sports guy over there gets 4 out of 10 hits from, every time there's a pitch that goes by in baseball. right? Or how many baskets did, Kobe Bryant miss while he still made the winning shot in how many games, right? Is it when it happens to you, when it's personal to you, it becomes a whole nother level of being able to manage that. So tell me about a deal that went wrong.
So when I had I don't know, a couple hundred units of small multis in my portfolio, and I met a guy who went to my church. He did a ton of single family in Chicagoland. I had never really done single family at scale. I'd done a couple single family homes, but he found a 900 unit apartment building that he wanted to do. And I knew multifamily, and I knew kind of the differences, how to get the lending and all of that stuff. So he wanted my partnership in doing that deal. And I decided, like, no, we're going to do something small first, because I'm not going to go raise all that capital without knowing what doing a deal with you is like, right? So he decided, I'm going to go buy these 2 single family homes, you be the capital, and then I'll roll it into my blanket loan. Well, I did what I thought was all the due diligence, Christina. I made sure that the LLC paperwork was in place. I made sure that my LLC was going to get paid back the $110,000 that I was bringing. I walked the properties. I looked at the appraisals and saw everything. Well, I wired the $110,000 to this guy, and he never bought the properties. And it seemed very planned out, because he told me to look at the exhibits on our LLC paperwork, because we didn't own anything when we made the LLC. So it didn't feel weird that the exhibits had nothing listed, right? Well, I basically bought 50% of an LLC that owned nothing. And I could have litigated for a very long time, and I chose not to, because I could have been out even more money and gotten nothing back. Well, long story short, lessons learned here. I trusted this guy because our kids played together. We, went to church together. Like, there were all of these reasons on its face, that I should have trusted this guy. If I would have done a Google search or a background search, I would have seen that this guy was a creep. So at least I had an intuition that I didn't need to do this 900 unit apartment building with him. But I did. I was out $110,000 because I trusted him. I trusted his abilities more than I trusted my abilities. And one of the primary wins there was, wait, if this Wahoo can do all of this and have the portfolio that he does, I am 1,000 times smarter and more prepared. So it gave me the permission, like we were talking about, to go do bigger stuff, because I knew the truth of these matters in a way that he did not.
Okay. So that was your win from that. How did you manage the difficulty, the questioning of self, the mind doubling back, the moment where you go, oh man, I'm a freaking loser. At least that's my moment. Oh man, I'm a freaking loser. What the hell have I done? Like, can I trust myself?
Exactly. It was this whole kind of existential crisis that I was planning out leaving my W-2, and identified as a smart real estate investor who was well educated and really good at what she did. Like, that was the identity that I had. And then I made this huge mistake. And the minute that I did the search to see that he did not buy those properties in the county records, like, the level of my stomach dropping, I spent days in bed, not able to get out, completely, probably clinically depressed, right? For a couple of months. And then or a couple of weeks at least. And then I realized, the only way this changes, Mandy, is if you make a choice to go change it. And the really good news is that I still had liquidity. Like, I hadn't made such a big bet that I was going to completely, lose my shirt, but I still had liquidity, and I knew he didn't buy these houses. And I knew that those houses appraised for almost double what we were able to buy them for. So I took that other liquidity and I went and bought those properties, and I ended up making back the $110,000. So while it was a really terrible loss and a really terrible mistake, I ended up getting the opportunity to make myself whole, because I went and I pulled myself out of that deep ditch.
Okay, so that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And there's 2 things I want to highlight that I'm going to try to bottom line this. The first is that you froze. You froze. The first thing you did was we freeze. For me, I call myself a loser. And you freeze. I froze. I freeze too. And then you like curl up in the little ball for a little while. And then eventually you go, okay, enough, right? But if we just hate ourselves for the freezing, we're doubling down on the pain. We're doubling down on what's wrong. If we can accept the freezing as part of the space of getting to, I'm going to get myself out of this. And then finally, I'm going to shake all the stuff off and I'm going to get my ass out there and I'm going to find a solution, that we get there. We do get there. But can we accept that we freeze and then get there?
So I think I talk about this with my 14-year-old volleyball team. If you think about what just went wrong, you're thinking about something that's wrong. So, right, don't think about a pink elephant. Don't think about a pink elephant. You are thinking about a pink elephant. So how do you change your focus to the thing that is future facing that you control? That is the thing that will pull you out of something.
So that's a good way to get past the freeze. But when it's a big deal, I can't tell you how many people I talk to where the first thing they do when a deal goes upside down is that they do some version of rage in a way that either at themselves, right? Or they freeze. Fight or flight, right? Fight. It's fight, flight, freeze, or fib.
Oh, I heard fawn.
We can fawn too. That's another new one they're adding is fawn, which is you get overly engaged in trying to earn something back, right? You earn it by fawning on somebody, or you fib, which is you just lie, right? Lie to yourself or lie to others about what's happened. So if you're finding yourself doing any of these, fight, flight, freeze, fib, or fawn, all of those are reactionary. They're not necessarily the place of solution. They're not necessarily the place of finding right forward movement, but we all drop into that, and then we can move forward.
There's not a place of power there. If the place of power is figuring out where you do have control, where your efforts can affect change. So that is the thing. How do you focus in on the stuff that you can do today that is going to move the needle?
It's going to move the needle. And I think that's true of men and women. I just think we process it differently. We really do. I mean, I think we do. I think men sometimes it becomes a moment of rage where they go, I'm not going to let this frickin' thing happen. And they use that to propel themselves forward. And with women, I think we freeze and then we go, let's shake it off because I need to get my ass out of bed. Right? And it's the same statement. It's just said differently. Right? It's propelling myself forward this way or propelling myself forward that way. Either way, we're still propelling ourselves forward to a place of solution set. Okay, we've actually been talking for 40 minutes. I know it's hard to believe, for me at least. It's hard to believe that we've been talking for 40 minutes. So why don't you tell people how they can get a hold of you, either because you do have a course. We haven't even talked about that. So let's stop for a minute. Tell me about your coursework, and then let's talk about how people can get a hold of you for either your coursework or for GoBundance Women.
Sure. So having bought my way out of my W-2, buying these small apartment buildings, looking at the landscape of how do you learn to buy a small apartment building, it's really just $30,000 gurus. And that just felt weird to me. There's got to be a better way to learn what you need to learn to go do those things and still then keep some of that capital to be able to put it into the deal. So I had lots of people ask to pick my brain and I had nothing to give them. So I developed this steps of things you need to do, decisions you need to make to get really crystal clear on figuring out which asset to look at, which thing you are going to go buy to help get yourself into financial freedom. So I developed a course that we've launched on my website, mandymcallister.com, where our intention is to keep it super low priced so that it is accessible for people who want to chase small multis.
Beautiful. And I love that. And I agree. I also feel like there are a lot of really high priced courses out there that end up teaching you way too much than what is implementable and usable in a very, very short period of time. It's not that they're not teaching you bad stuff. It's just, you can't do all of that and have that learning curve in 3 months. You just need to be able to take in that chunk, digest it really, really well, start implementing it really, really well. And you can just pay for a chunk. You can pay for what does it mean to buy a small multifamily, and how do I do that versus how do I be a wholesaler? How do I do multifamily? How do I do storage units? How do I, and then get that all in this short period. And it's like, but you just need the one.
If you're gonna try to catch rabbits, Christina, you got to pick one and run at that rabbit, because you can catch all the rabbits, but you got to catch one at a time, right? You've got to make a decision on which one you're going to focus on and put your blinders on, and that's really what the points that I make in the course.
I love that. I love that. That's a really, really great example. Just perfect. All right, so mandymcallister.com is where people can find you. What about GoBundance Women? How do they sign up or get more information about GoBundance Women?
Sure, I'll give you a special link to put in the show notes so that it would come straight to me. But if you just want to research or look into GoBundance Women, it's GoBundanceWomen.com. It's GoBundance women.com, so plural women.
Very good. Perfect. Mandy, I could do another 5 shows with you and still feel like we haven't hit nearly the breadth and depth of your knowledge, your essence as a being, your sense of value and purpose and what you want to contribute and the impact you want to create on this planet. So thank you for all that you've done to be the amazing being that you are. And oh, by the way, that you're helping people move forward. That's awesome.
Thank you so much, Christina. I knew that we were going to be buds the moment I met you. So thank you for this opportunity.
I feel the same way. I'm looking at it going, is she me? No, I'm me. She's her. But I mean, come on. Like, there's so many things that we are passionate about or that we are making stands for in our lives that it's just similar. All right. Thank you so much for listening to Christina Suter, Real Estate Breakthrough. You can find a show every 2 weeks on YouTube, but there are lots and lots of shows now, guys, over 180 different shows that you can look at on YouTube. Feast away. Get knowledge, get educated, but don't forget to build your network. That is the way that you build your success. The way you treat your network is how you grow your net worth. So thank you so much, Mandy. Great to have you here. Christina Suter, Real Estate Breakthrough.